So for anyone that's not familiar with it, how do you define content syndication? How do you think about it just for someone that has never even heard the word content syndication, hasn't even thought about it as part of their vehicles or their channels?
Yeah, so I think first to hit it on the head, like what we're trying to do and how I'm trying to talk about it is separate traditional syndication with distribution. A lot of the times in my experience and marketers that I've been talking with, what happens is those numbers didn't really convert to anything. And while they look good in a marketer's KPIs, they didn't really result in much. So what we're trying to do when talking about distribution is to think about it from a lens of focusing more on quality and less on quantity. We're not promising our customers that we're going to give them 1,000 new leads per month just because we don't believe that's the way we're moving in marketing. So when we're thinking about distribution, we're thinking about how can we facilitate the exchange and relationship between content piece gets created and marketer wants to go promote that to the right people, and then the juice creating that network of right people and making those matches. And it's not matches in to say, hey, someone goes and reads your new blog post article or consumes your podcast or watch your new video, and you should go call them right now and follow up on them because they're a warm lead who wants to see a demo of your stuff. We're really beginning to try to talk about what are the things that we can be doing as marketers to create better experiences by taking one of our most important assets like content and really work with other members of the team, sales, product, to gather the insights, intent signals, and then make really great experiences on the other side when we're trying to make those connections with them. So much like when we have a new piece of content that we're creating, we publish that on LinkedIn, we publish it on Twitter, we might go to Reddit, whatever your channels of choice is. We really want to be one of those channels for B2B marketers who are thinking strategically about building out a content distribution plan.
How do you define account-based marketing and the outcomes of like strategy against account-based? Everybody defines it differently. How do you think about it?
I have to comment on the account-based marketing buzziness of the buzzword. To me, like maybe it was how I was raised as a B2B marketer and working for really smart leaders, but I've seen this quote and I actually remember a day vividly when I was in my early days as a marketer and one of our senior leaders walked in and account-based marketing was just getting off the ground. And maybe it was a level of sophistication that enterprise sophistication that I grew up in. But I remember our senior leader walking into the room and an article came up and there was this conversation happening and him just saying, isn't this just marketing? And that always stood out to me. Yes, this is what we should, this is the expectation. This is what we should be doing as marketers. In your example, like if a target account or someone that fits our ICP comes in, I think for me, it's an investigation. And that's how I like to think about my role as a marketer. It's an understanding of, okay, this brand came on our site, this brand's consuming our content. Let's try to gather as many signals and insight and information we can about the brand and see what pieces of content are resonating with them. Where are they going? I've used this word in other podcasts and stuff, and people are like, really, we want to talk about this? But I think we as marketers need to put on our research hats and formulate our data and synthesize things together before we even go to sales and say, hey, go call this account, sales. I think the more we can inform sales about everything we have found as from an account level and then can provide recommendations to sales, the likelihood of sales reaching out and making a connection and having a conversation with those accounts go up. So often we as marketers think about things as, all right, we're going to do this thing, and then all of a sudden it's going to become a closed-won new business opportunity because what we're doing is so great. I think what I like to think about is there's these small stages and these small steps, and if we take a step back as marketers and figure out what is the pieces of the bridge that we can put in between each stage that will lead to us getting to the other side and us getting to the other side's winning a new customers, like we need to spend our time there.
So is it just that the content factory and the volume is misjudged, or is it the fact that we're not tracking our own performance when we publish an article? Are we just saying, I want to spray and pray is my goal, and I think that's the reality? How do you think about that?
In our space, Martech, Scott Brinker's Martech infographic. There's nearly 10,000 companies on there this year. I can tell you right now, every one of them is doing content marketing, and they're all investing deeper in content marketing programs. I think the good thing about that is if you're in a content marketing role, there's good job security there. I think the bad thing is we're overwhelming the people that we're trying to reach. If everyone is doing that, everything is falling on deaf ears, and it's really difficult for the people that we're trying to reach to get content to the people that we're trying to reach. We are talking about it in a way that if you take the content factory approach, and I'll be clear to anyone listening, content factory approach is the old way that I was raised in how content marketing works, where it's like, all right, we're going to churn out this piece of content with a bunch of keywords in it. We're going to publish it at this time, and Google's going to like it, and they're going to pick up on it, and then we're going to move on to the next one and just keep churning and churning. And this is creating a lot of content today, but because everyone's doing it, most of your content and that investment is going unseen and falling into internet purgatory. That's a waste of money. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of brand opportunity. And that's really where we see the opportunity in being distribution, where it's how can we go on offense with the content that we're creating and go explore the right channels. And hopefully the juice can be one of them for anyone who is interested in on this exploration. But how can we go explore those channels and invest our time in building relationships and making those one-to-one connections in those channels, so that when we do have a piece of content to share, there's meaning and significance behind it, and you're creating brand connection. So that's how I'm thinking about it. And in that content factory bad to distribution being good way, I have found that a lot of B2B marketers know that they should be focusing on distribution.
How do you think about repurposing as part of syndication? Is it two separate disciplines and both of them just happen to have the same problem?
So yeah, my thought process, and I'll share a real example. We decided last fall to do our first ebook at the Juice, and the ebook was about turning down the volume on quantity content and turning up the volume on quality content. And my strategy on creating this piece of content was, I've got my own perspective, but there's a lot of people that I'm meeting out there in the B2B world. So how can I curate people in market to share their perspective on quantity versus quality when it comes to content? So really good piece, really smart marketers contributed to that. And when we had the deliverable all put together, you've got to launch. And we always want to launch with a bang. So for us, it was, okay, we're a small company. Hardly anyone knows we exist. They don't know anything about us. We're just starting to get our message out in market. Our product had been live for 3 months. So what we did was we leveraged the power of those individuals and their networks to help distribute content in market. So making them a part of the promotional strategy and making them a key stakeholder in the process. So making them feel like they were a part of launch. And you can do that by spinning up some special infographics or special graphics that make your contributor look like a marketing superhero. I think it's, what can you do to maximize this? So going back on it, you find topics, and those topics become podcast episodes. And then you take little pieces and you create chunks that you distribute on Twitter, and you can share them on LinkedIn. That's our model and what we're doing. Obviously, for me, it's one of those things I always want to be doing more. And it depends on your size marketing team and the resources that you have allocated. But I think the punchline is, just because you spend all this $20,000 on an ebook, don't just launch it and just expect it to sit. So I think it's always trying to find additional layers and finding opportunities with each piece of content that you're creating.
What it does is it's a forcing function of channel equals performance. The channel is something where a measurement of performance needs to be evaluated channel by channel. And that, if you're not doing that, you're missing the whole purpose of all of content. So you create content. It may be content you have to build to tell the story you're an expert. It may never be a lightning rod for entrances, organic entrances, but it is required for wayfinding maybe. They land on one page, they wayfind to the other. It illustrates you understand the buyer journey, right? So every content item can have one-to-many purpose, and the purpose connects to a channel, all right? Sorry, you said education hat, so I'm just getting into the stuff, right?
I'm waiting for you to get the chalkboard out.
Yeah, I'm about to draw this. But the key miss there is your factory can be a surgically striking, beautiful factory that's operating at 40% efficiency, right? You publish 10 articles, you get 4 organic search winners. Bravo. That's great. All 10 of those items could actually be channel specific winners in syndication, or none of them. So you have to evaluate, and maybe they're all social winners, or maybe none of them are. You have to understand all the channels can compound, or you can do them as individual derivatives. This is where bad low quality SEO content falls apart. If you build a low quality SEO content, which you should never do, by the way, you would never distribute it and expect it to be successful. And that's where this whole thing gets into, we need to measure our content quality by how well it's differentiated, how well it connects to the purpose, and performance by channel. That's the way I love to hear the way you describe this. It's to say, why would we build this at all? Has to be answered. And then how are we going to get the most out of it? And I love you said, most people don't know how to start content syndication. It's by understanding that purpose is by channel, right? You may have a content item that rocks social. You may have an item that rocks in a content syndication network. It may not be in its same state, organic. What's the playbook for putting something out into content syndication that doesn't perform? So what do you learn from that? If you put something in and it's not getting the volume that I expect, or even enough to make it relevant so that people are like, ooh, wow, that's a great channel. What do I do in those scenarios? How do I improve my performance in a syndication network?
Yeah, so I don't try to lose my mind over something that I'm passionate about, that I know the market through. If I've done the homework and knows it's a topic that will resonate with the audience, I don't lose my mind off of creating something on that topic that doesn't perform right away. And I try not to leave it just from one drop off. What I like to do is I go back and I like to look at the content, whether it's a conversation, whether it's something I wrote, and I like to read through it again and think about, are there words? Is the headline bad? Are there different ways that I could be talking about this thing that's in my head right now? And when I'm creating a piece along with that topic, I try to reposition it a little bit and then go again. A lot of what we're doing at an early stage is it's throwing something up at the wall and seeing what sticks. By no means do I have all the answers to content distribution, but I want to share what I'm learning along the way and understand that sometimes stuff might fall off the table. So I like to look at myself in the mirror and evaluate myself and then try it again. Now, if there's a trend of something I'm saying or producing or doing that's just getting no response, then typically I'll probably put it on the shelf and move on to the next one. But I think so often we move off of stuff too quickly in B2B marketing when something doesn't work right away. What I have learned over my decade plus of experience in this space is that the more that we say stuff, and it's got to get boring to you, because when it finally gets boring to you, that probably means you're not promoting or saying it enough. So that's how I think about it, is try to stay and evaluate, and you'll know, but just have the confidence to move away from it or have the confidence to keep going. And you'll know just based on a consistent response along the way.